Hey guys, welcome to the shop. Today, I'm going to show you 3 easy ways to improve this chop saw so that it can work harder, faster, and better for you so that you don't have to. Now all of these improvements should work for just about any chop saw out there, but in case you're wondering, the one that I have is made by Bosch and it's a 12-inch dual bevel hinge slide miter saw. I know that's a mouthful. All that means is that it has a 12-inch blade. Because of the proprietary mechanism that Bosch has, it's on a hinge here, so it slides back and forth, which gives it, I think, about a 14-inch crosscut capacity. And it also is a bevel saw, which means that it can tilt from left to right, and it's a miter saw, which means that it can rotate from left to right. The miter capacity on this saw is about 50 degrees on the left, 60 degrees on the right. I believe it has about a 45-degree bevel capacity on either side. Now, the first issue I want to tackle is tear out when you get a cut. Now, this happens because the underside of the piece of wood is unsupported. So when the saw blade goes through it, it literally tears out all of the fibers below. And even though you don't normally use a chop saw for finish cuts, it's nice to not have to chase those mistakes all the way down. So if you can get it performing at its best, even in the rough milling stage, you're going to really pay off dividends later on. Now, the main culprit on this saw for causing tear out comes down to these plastic blade inserts down here. Now, they're a little chintzy, they're kind of flimsy. They're meant to be removable because eventually they will wear out, but what it comes down to is this huge gap that you have here. And you can adjust it, there is a little bit of play, but even still, it's a pretty big gap, and that leaves a lot of the material unsupported at the cut line. So we're going to go ahead and remove these, and we're going to make a custom zero clearance throat plate here for the saw. Well, that was a huge improvement. I can't believe I didn't do that sooner. Plus, this just looks great. I mean, it's nice having a fresh piece of walnut there to look at every time I'm making a cut. So now that there's a zero clearance plate in here, that means that the material has support all the way up to the actual cut line. This is the old cut, the tear out from that. And if we look at the bottom of the next cut, you can see not a single fiber has torn out here. So a much cleaner cut. So really, from this point on, tear out should be completely eliminated. I honestly can't believe I didn't do this sooner. Now, the next issue that I wanted to tackle is when you have the blade burning the material inside of the cut. Now, this can happen sometimes when you have a very large piece of material, when you're cutting through really dense wood, and there are some things that as the user you can do to help mitigate that. You can vary how much downward pressure you have, and you can also change how much speed you're putting into the cut itself. So these things do help to minimize the burning, but sometimes the easiest and honestly the fastest way to improve the cut quality is to just replace the blade. So this blade is actually the one that came with the saw, and this is a 60 tooth crosscut blade. It's not bad, it's not great. So I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and replace it, and I think we're going to do it just like that. Oh hey, it worked. Don't you just love the magic of editing? But seriously, here's how I did it. Now that's just a super quick 5-minute upgrade that will seriously bring your saw up to the next level. I replaced my original 60 tooth blade with an 80 tooth crosscut blade by CMT Tools. And this one's a little bit thicker, so the blade itself is a little bit more rigid, and the extra teeth also make for a much finer cut. And even if you're doing cuts with the grain, it still leaves a much finer result in the end. The third and final upgrade I wanted to talk about is probably one that anyone who's ever owned a chop saw, especially if you have it indoors in your own shop, you know that this is the biggest pain in the butt, and that is the dust collection. Really, on this saw, it's more just a suggestion than actual dust collection. Every cut I've made, actually in between every take I've done for this video, I've had to vacuum this out because it just gets so messy. So if I can get the dust collection on this to be even a little bit better, that's going to make a world of difference in how well the saw performs, but also just keeping the shop clean. It makes a big difference because I hate having to vacuum this thing out every couple days, and I hate being covered in sawdust at the end of the day after using this thing just a couple times. So the main issue with this saw is that the point of collection for the dust back here, this little scoop, is really far away from the point where the dust is actually made. And that huge gap allows all of that sawdust to escape. So after a lot of trial and error on my part, I tried a bunch of different things. They really weren't working. The improvements were marginal at best. So I did a little research, aka I just Googled a bunch of stuff. It turns out that someone else with better skills and more time on his hands has already fixed this problem for this particular saw. I was able to find someone who had 3D printed their own dust collection system. And it actually fixes a lot of the issues this one has for a few reasons. First off, the mounting location is a really pivotal point here. So this actually mounts where this blade guard is back here, which means that the collection point on this, which is this big opening here, is way closer to the source of the dust than this collection point here. And the second reason that the collection method is a lot more direct. So if you can see here, this has to go up and around and then down through whatever vacuum system you've got it to. And on this one, there's no kinks, there's very few turns. This is going to get connected directly to the vacuum. So that eliminates a lot of extra turbulence. It shortens the span that the dust has to travel. and that means that you can collect a lot more dust a lot faster, leaving a lot less mess around you. Alright, so now what we're going to do is make 3 separate cuts so we can compare what it looks like with no dust collection at all. I'm going to make one cut with the standard dust collection, and then I'm going to make a final cut using the new dust collection that we have, and we'll see how big of a difference it really makes. Our first cut will be with no dust collection at all, just so we can have something to compare it to, and we'll see just how much of a mess this makes. Not ideal. Not great. Okay, so the second cut now is going to be with just the stock dust collection here. It's this little shroud back here that goes into a plastic port, and I've got that hooked up to my standard shop vac here. So immediately, I do notice a difference. There's a lot less finer particles in the air. Before, that was like a cloud of really fine sawdust that was everywhere. You may not have caught it on camera, but trust me, it was here. So that significantly reduced that. There is still a lot floating around, and then there is still a lot back behind the saw. Alright, so I've gone ahead and removed the old dust collection system, and I put in the new one. So already you can see that the point where the dust is being collected is right at the source. So it's right at the blade. There's a shroud that goes right around the blade. It's literally like almost touching the teeth, and then right below that is where the dust collection port is. So I've vacuumed everything off after every cut. There's nothing, there's no dust, it's totally spotless. So let's see how it cuts. Let's see if it really does make that big of a difference. Okay, so initial feedback, it's better. Again, there's a lot less of the fine dust in the air. I still do get a little bit. I mean, I wasn't expecting this to take care of 100% of the dust, but it's significantly better than what I had before. There's still a little bit coming out of the sides here, but there's almost nothing in the back. There's very little there, and I mean, really, it speaks for itself. That's a huge improvement over what I was getting before. So obviously that's just one cut, but if you're making tens, dozens, hundreds of cuts, that's going to pile up over time, and a cleaner workspace is just more enjoyable to work in, and it's safer. So I think that the results really speak for themselves there. So there you have it, folks. 3 ways that you can improve your chop saw. We've got a zero clearance fence, we have a brand new blade, and brand new dust collection system, and I think without a doubt you will see a huge difference in the performance as well as the overall mess that you make or lack thereof. So if you guys have any questions, if you guys have any comments, or you've done different stuff to your chop saws or your other tools, please let me know, and I'll make sure to have any links to the products that I've bought in the description. And again, if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.